Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Stephanie Miracle with the Federal Reserve Financial Services, and I am pleased to welcome you to our FedNow Service Town Hall. First, I'd like to review our agenda. We're excited to kick off today's town hall hearing directly from Dwolla, a leading US-based account-to-account payment solution on how they are using instant payments in support of a variety of really interesting use cases. Transitioning from the fireside chat with Dwolla, we're going to hear from the U.S. Department of Treasury's Bureau of Fiscal Services. And we'll learn about how the Treasury is uniquely positioned to support federal programs and mitigate the risks of financial fraud by leveraging efficient and modern payment methods like FedNow Service. And finally, I'll share a little bit more about our industry engagement later this year and some upcoming events and opportunities. Would love to see you join us there. Now, let's talk about how you can make the most about your time today. So, to optimize your audio and enhance your accessibility, you may wish to enable closed captioning for today's webinar. To toggle on closed captioning, you want to select closed captions options in the bottom left of your viewing screen, and you can also choose your preferred caption language if needed. Additionally, take a moment to locate the Q&A and polling panels on the bottom right side of your viewing window. While we won't be answering questions live during today's event, you can submit questions at any time throughout the webinar. And if you have any issues with your connection, send an email to fednowcommunity@chi.frb.org, and that's also on the screen, or you can scan that QR code. But don't worry if you're not able to get it resolved. For this, we always record these and we'll make them available for you in the coming days, in addition to the slide deck. So it's going to be well worth your while today. All right, so let's get started with a little bit of details about the FedNow service. So, for those of you who may not be as familiar with FedNow, it's an instant payments infrastructure that's been developed by the Federal Reserve that allows financial institutions of all types and shapes and sizes across the United States to send and receive payments within 3 seconds on average. So it goes really quick. Through these participating financial institutions, businesses, and consumers can access these instant payments to be able to move money around the clock anytime throughout the year, any day, any night. It's all available to you. Now, today's theme is about innovation on the FedNow network, including from us, the Federal Reserve Financial Services. From the beginning, we launched FedNow with risk mitigation tools, and you have told us that is a high priority for you. And so we continue to make an investment in this space. Financial institutions have a lot of information about their own account holders. However, there's often other parties involved in a given transaction. So the FedNow service will release a new solution called a network intelligence tool. And this will enable sending financial institutions to request information about insights into a holistic view of a transaction to better assess the overall risk of a potential payment. So this tool uses data across the network and it can be accessed via API. So it's intended to augment a financial institution's own payment data and fraud mitigation solutions. These insights may be used to combat risks by providing additional information that they may use to assist in making better decisions regarding a payment. One way a financial institution might use this tool is in conjunction with their own data to improve customer experience or member experience. For example, the network data can be used to deliver additional messaging in their app or to get more information about a particular transaction, or perhaps just double check with your customer or member that they really do want to send this transaction. This new network intelligence API joins a suite of existing risk management capabilities that are available today to FedNow participants. Early testers have noted that it's very easy to integrate with their existing systems, always a bonus, and it helps balance speed and efficiencies while safeguarding against risks. So it's going to be a great tool and available to all FedNow participants and to better understand the potential risk of a specific transaction. So if you'd like to learn more, don't hesitate to reach out to your Federal Reserve Relationship Management team, and we will get you the information about the solution. It's a very exciting time to see these continue to evolve on the network. So as we continue to evolve, others in the industry are innovating as well. So, our first fireside chat today features my colleague Molly Markin. She's an industry relations manager for the Federal Reserve Financial Services. And she had an opportunity to sit down with Skyler Nesheim, Chief Technology Officer for Dwolla. They're a leading provider of payment services. We'll hear more about Dwolla's go to market approach and some unique instant payments use cases, my favorite topic. And as we begin sharing this recording, you may wish to close out of other applications to conserve your bandwidth and ensure the best viewing experience. And you can even enable subtitles.
Skyler, welcome and thank you for being with us today. Before we dive into all of the fun payments talk, let's begin with a quick introduction and let our attendees get to know you. So, as Dwolla's Chief Technology Officer, can you share a little bit about your role there and a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for the invite today. I'm Skyler Nesheim. I'm the CTO here at Dwolla. I've been with the business for the last 13 years or so. My responsibility is really around helping the company manage our technical operations, as well as leading our product initiatives and product roadmap. I'm really proud of the innovative and excited work that we've done at Dwolla, and happy to share some of our journey in instant payments with the audience today.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you. And based on your role, I think we have the right expert here to give us some really exciting insights. So let's jump in. And now that we got to know you, let's get to know Dwolla a little bit more because many audience members probably know Dwolla by name. But for anyone less familiar, can you give us a quick rundown of how you would describe Dwolla's role and the payment in the payments ecosystem and what makes you different? What sets you apart?
At a simple level, Dwolla is a technology enablement layer for account to account payments. We work with other software platforms, perhaps insurance platforms or accounts payable and receivable platforms, B2B marketplaces, and fintech infrastructure companies. And these companies all want to embed pay by bank experiences directly into their products. Our job at Dwolla is to make that easy and safe. We're not a payment rail. Our job is really to make the payment rails more usable inside of existing real workflows. As an example, with one API, our customers are able to access account to account payment rails. That includes ACH and instant payment options. And as our reach expands, we can help our customers intelligently route based on what's available and what's needed for their use case. The real differentiator for us is helping with operational enablement of payments. We all know that payments are a complicated space, especially at the edges. And so we help our customers with challenges like verification, reconciliation, and exception handling. And we spend a lot of time making sure that our customers don't have to become experts in order to enable and embed these types of solutions in what they do. So when someone integrates with Dwolla, our goal is to make sure that that payment experience feels really straightforward and predictable. And we believe that the best integrations with a technology company like us are boring in a good way.
I love that. So we know Dwolla has been using instant payments since 2021, so pretty cutting edge there, which is exciting. And last year, you all enabled the FedNow service for your customers, which was another huge milestone and big kudos to you all. So what really compelled Dwolla to lean into instant payments all those years ago? And what were some of the initial opportunities that you were able to use to craft a really seamless value proposition and sell it internally?
We work with a lot of innovative platforms where they're building experiences where real-time money movement has become table stakes. for them or for the customers that they work with that are trying to digitally transform. For example, we worked with one platform that has business payouts based on incoming payments. And previously, they had to wait for settlement before making funds available downstream. And that introduced friction and delay in their entire workflow. So, instant payments have stepped in to help change that. Now they can move money with certainty and design around availability instead of design around delayed settlement. Another piece that really grabbed our attention when we were working on instant payments is data. And I think this is an area that maybe doesn't get as much talk time as it should. Instant payment rails help us carry a richer context with a transaction and with transaction instructions. And that can become really important for payment operations. In real operation scenarios, reconciliation is where a lot of the cost can live. And if a payment shows up with clean identifiers, remittance data, things that you can automate around and predict and reconcile more simply, it reduces your costs in manual overhead and reduces your costs in terms of what you have to investigate. So internally, we kind of framed it as where can we find example use cases inside of our customer base where certainty, availability, and better data materially change the outcomes for the customers that we're working with. And that's what got us excited to step into these new payment rails.
Really exciting. And so you built the case, you sold it internally, you prepared your systems, but I'm curious, what were your customers' initial reactions once this was available to them, and their customers, even further down the stream to instant payments and all that it offered? And did you have any early lessons on anything particularly well received or exciting, or even unexpected from your customers?
The first reaction that we saw, and honestly, the first reaction that we had was it just works. There's something that changes when you do an instant payment for that first time and you hit the refresh button on your browser and you can literally see a balance change or refresh in real time and land. That moment can kind of stick with you. It's simple, it's tangible and touchable, and you feel almost an immediate reset in expectations and vision on what could be. You can feel your mind opening up to where the future is going. What customers, came to love about this over time is not just that it's instant and that it's fast after that first reaction, it's about the predictability, that real practical impact where you now see payments changing from something where we're designing around a rail that has a leg or has a longer set of feedback time that can introduce questions like, hey, where is this money at? How are these things have landed for our customers or for us? That could be support tickets or escalations that we have to work through. The long-term impact of instant payments has been reducing those and moving those things around. You asked about what we've learned. One lesson that we've learned early on is about how to position and explain instant payments to our customers when we're working with them, how to get them excited. So we want to make sure that we're telling the story about making reconciliation and attribution easier with the rich data that's inside of instant payments. We want to make sure that our customers understand how to set clear expectations and about product behaviors so that users aren't surprised by errors that they might see and so that there's consistency in the user experience when we're leveraging these solutions. And we help our customers be intentional about thinking about where they might offer instant payments and where they continue to use an existing payment rail today.
I love that, especially because we sometimes are waiting for, the fireworks and sparklers to come out when a new payment opportunity arises. But true success can really be there was nothing that happened. It just worked, and no one had to think about it. No one had to worry about it. And I know, you talked about you launched in 2021, but obviously your offerings and Dwolla have come a long way since. And we do know that you support a wide variety of industries, use cases, and examples. So, what are some of the use cases that you're most excited about today when it comes to instant payments?
I'll focus on a few examples that really stand out. The first one I think of is insurance payouts. And I think this is a strong example where an instant payment can really matter. um, a couple of real scenarios that some of us have experienced, right? Imagine that you have a loss at your home, or an insurance claim at your home, and you need to do repairs. Being able to receive funding for those repairs in near real time and be able to pay contractors and move them forward is really important. Seeing a claim approved is an emotional moment for us, and waiting for funds to clear in order to solve that, is something that can take away from that experience. So we know that there are a lot of insurance companies, and this is a real enterprise example where they are building out these payment rails to differentiate and really reach their customers. One that resonates with me is you know, not just insurance for home and auto, like you think about, but there's other emerging insurance use cases as well. We support some companies in the pet insurance space, right?
Love it.
So many of us have pets at home, and you know that there can be surprise issues or operations that you need to do. And again, that can be a very emotional thing for us. It's this place where technology crosses over from just things that happen in computers and over APIs to things that touch us in the real world. And being able to receive an instant payment to support an emergency for potentially something that's really important in your life, you can feel it in that moment. Bringing it back maybe to some other use cases on the B2B side, I would say that treasury and accounts payable use cases are also one that's very interesting for instant payments. You can imagine that in some context, instant payments can reduce the risk profile compared to other payment methods in the wrong scenario, right? So we can suppress our treasury payment cycles, and we can combine instant payments with richer data in order to improve reconciliation and make those processes a little bit cleaner. A third one I think about, is maybe like a real estate or property management scenario. And there's a lot of different scenarios where I think instant payments can show up. We're thinking about a decision and the right time to return that security deposit. And perhaps we want to use a standard payment rail with, um, you know, more with a standard clearing option, or we want to leverage an instant payment rail where we've got a tenant that's been really great, and we're ready to pay them back right now. We can go ahead and pay them that security deposit back instantly. So these are all real examples of areas where we're seeing instant payments show up.
I'm curious as well because we've talked about a lot of the value Dwolla sees in instant payments, and even how it just works for your customers and what they've seen. But when you are talking to customers or others in the industry, how are you articulating the value of these types of transactions to your customers or potential customers? And how do you think of, or how does that work into how you think about pricing as well?
We start by talking about outcomes. We deeply understand our customers, and we start thinking about the ways and the questions that we could ask that could lead to this as a solution to problems that they have. So we talk through, what are your support costs today in managing your payment infrastructure? How are your customer expectations changing in terms of how they want to receive payment? How quickly they expect to receive it, the way that they expect us to receive it, the way they expect to interact with it, the user experience that your customers want to have. We talk through that stuff. That can lead to great discussions with our customers about retention, right? Do you see the speed at which a payment or the data involved in a payment or your treasury operations being a key indicator to retaining customers or growing with customers. We try to talk through and understand, like, are there product experiences that you want to offer that you didn't believe were possible, that, if you can imagine a real-time payment network being involved in it, that you could now remove some of the barriers that you thought existed or some of the friction that you thought existed in providing a new product or experience. And I kind of mentioned this already, but we try to understand treasury operations too, right? We try to understand controllers and CFOs as they're managing the finances of a business. Are there, again, scenarios or friction challenges that they have that they believe an instant payment could help solve? So we focus on the problems first. And as we talk through the problems and the challenges and understand them, the pricing conversation starts to sort of evaporate and go away, because we're not talking about the cost of a new payment rail and comparing it against an existing payment rail. We're talking about a technology innovation that's solving a deep and meaningful problem for someone. They're automating a workflow, bringing a new product experience, better managing their treasury operation in a way that the pricing goes away and isn't as big of an isn't an issue to discuss, right? It's not a barrier to adoption. It becomes a, well, why wouldn't we do this? We've been having this problem for forever. If we have the technology to solve it, why wouldn't we leverage it and use it?
Yeah, that's excellent. And I want everyone who's listening right now, especially those who have not yet enabled FedNow or started your FedNow journey, to especially tune into our last question, because I think, Skylar, you've been giving so many helpful tips of how to begin and continue these conversations of instant payments with customers, and given a lot of folks things to think about. So for the final question, I'd love to know any other tips you have around that, or homework for our lovely attendees who want to get started on their FedNow journey today.
I would recommend doing some thought experiments and, you know, grabbing your notebook and grabbing your piece of paper and thinking about your what's in it for me. Start plotting out your journey and imagine a point in time where you're able to adopt or enable instant payments. And take your notebook, draw a line on it, and on one half say, here's all the things that we had to think about before instant payments. And on the other half, draw a line and say, here are all the things that we now get to think about after instant payments. Some of the things that might appear on one side might be, we've got a plan around potential cutoff windows for our payments. We need to think about batch processing in our payments. We need to think about, cycles being delayed or slower feedback in terms of if the payment has cleared or it's going to be returned, or there's, something we need to consider there. We need to think about reconciliation, right, in our pre-instant payment world. How are we going to manage the data? How are we going to reconcile across multiple systems? Consider scenarios like I'd mentioned before, like support tickets. Do research into how many support tickets are you getting today due to delays, or understanding where a payment's at or when it's going to clear, status related things. I mean, I think everyone in the room knows their business the best, and that they'll have to think through those things. But then on the other side of that line, now imagine a world where you're able to solve a payment problem instantly. And what are some of the things that you should think through there, right? So now you have 24/7 availability. Now you have certainty that a payment has cleared when you get the instruction back or when you get the API response back. You can now make faster decisions or more real-time decisions in your business than you could make before. You've got richer context of the transaction, and so you might have easier reconciliation. You may have cleaner operations, right? The support tickets may start to evaporate or go away. Again, it's getting into that use case and understanding the problem that you're trying to solve and mapping back to how an instant payment helps you solve that problem. Identifying the use case, investing in your operational readiness, and thinking about intentional rollout if you're headed there for an instant payment workflow in your business. We're seeing that these new payment rails are becoming table stakes for many, many business as they continue on digital transformation journeys and continue to modernize.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us this afternoon and for sharing some of those really meaningful insights from an organization that's been doing this for quite some time. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
I loved listening to Molly and Skylar's discussion. It's such an important point that he makes that payments can generate an emotional response, and they can really save the day. Businesses who offer choices and payments can stand out in a competitive field. And we're going to talk to Molly a little bit more in just a moment. But first, I'd love to hear from you about your plans for adopting FedNow service. So, just a quick poll here. You can see it in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, but perhaps you're already live on the network, one of the 1,670 or so financial institutions who've come into the network, ranging from the largest financial institutions in America to community financial institutions that have just a handful, literally a handful of staff supporting the network. So would love to see that. Maybe you are on your journey and thinking about it, and we are here for you to help you think through opportunities, your business case, and lessons learned. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So we'll give you a few more moments to finish out that poll. But meanwhile, Molly, I'd love it if you would come back and talk a little bit more about your work and how businesses are using instant payments.
Thanks, Steph. And it was so great to watch the conversation with Skylar back because I love when we have those tangible nuggets of what can we do, how to start our journey. And it's something that I hear day in, day out from the businesses and the end users that me and my team of industry relations work with
Mhm.
every single day. And what we heard from Skylar was that desire for optionality. And it's really exciting because we see that backed up in the data as well. The Federal Reserve Financial Services actually conducted a study of businesses. And within that data, we found that 1 in 3 businesses cite greater payment optionality as really critical to their success. And it's why we're seeing so many of them prioritize and invest in digital payments that can enhance the customer experience overall. So it's a really good example of when the real life anecdotes and the data that we're collecting match and tell the same story.
Mm. Yeah, and that report can be found at frbservices.org. I was fascinated in reading that report that businesses are sharing that 3 in 4 customers and trading partners are asking for instant payments. And honestly, it makes sense to me because I think about our world today and how, I can order something online this morning and have it delivered by lunchtime. Everything happens really quickly in our world. And so it only makes good sense that transactions would follow that same formula.
Yeah, the instant world we live in, it's the expectations and it's that I want it now mentality. And I loved his comments too about it just works as well. You want it now and you want it seamless. And I
Mm.
think one of the other common rationales or reasons that we hear businesses are interested in instant payments and specifically the FedNow service is really because of the potential reach too.
Mm.
We currently have 7 in 10 of the country's largest financial institutions on the network. And to your earlier point, over 1,670, total participants live. And what that means is that businesses and financial institutions and those leveraging the network have a great experience and they're able to reach the majority of endpoints they're looking for. So it's a support of that not only instant and want it now mentality, but that idea of it just works.
I love it. Well, great to see the network grow and thrive with so many participants sending via FedNow service. Thanks so much, Molly. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's move on to another excellent fireside chat. Last week, my colleague Greg Jager, who serves on the FedNow Service product management team, had a conversation with Marshall Henry. He's the director of Bureau of Fiscal Services Digital Disbursement and Debit Card Solutions Program, or also called Digital Pay, to learn more about the U.S. Treasury and how they are using instant payments.
Marshall, Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Before we jump right into our chat, I'd like to take a moment, help the audience get to know you a little bit. So in your role at the U.S. Treasury, you oversee the digital disbursement and debit card solutions team at the Bureau of the Fiscal Service. We'll talk about some of the specifics of those programs in just a moment, but first, can you tell us a little bit more about your work and your time at the Treasury?
Certainly, and thanks for the conversation, Greg. I've actually been with the Treasury for about 20 years, but before the Treasury, I worked in banking and federal IT for about 10 years. So I've got about 30 years experience working in this space that I've used to help launch a passion for helping the government move forward with some of these financial initiatives. Some of the initiatives I get to work on are very exciting with our debit card solutions in our digital disbursements area. And we'll talk about the digital pay program today. Early in my career, I was really focused on money into the government. I managed our EFTPS and our pay.gov systems, focused on financial innovation for a while. And now I find myself focused on money going out of the government. So it's come real full circle for me, but it's been very, very pleasing. And I feel like I'm really getting a good understanding of what the banking industry needs and what the federal IT industry needs.
That's great insight. Thank you. So you've been involved in lots of aspects of Treasury payments over the years. Can you help us understand what the digital payout program is and how it fits into Treasury's overall payments toolkit?
Yes, I'd love to. Yeah. Digital payout, or digital pay for short, is a new program at the Bureau of Fiscal Service that we've launched that we hope will complement a lot of our traditional disbursement programs. The goal here really is for this digital pay tool to help agencies across the finish line when it comes to moving to all electronic disbursements. Now, we've been at this for quite some time, moving from paper to electronic. But last year, we saw a new executive order come out that further strengthened the federal push to electronic solutions. This executive order also pushed the government to adopt new e-commerce tools. Digital pay represents the new tool in our toolkit to really help meet that executive order and give agencies these new access to these new tools. One of the key concepts that we're hoping for and hoping to deliver to citizens with this tool is the concept of choice, payment choice at the time of disbursement. This digital pay tool will help agencies make disbursements out in ways that they weren't able to before and really give citizens the ability to receive the payment and make a choice on how they wish to receive it at that time of payment. We envision a future where digital pay will help complement a lot of our current payment operations, our direct deposit operations, and really be a new tool to meet emerging needs, meet specific, unique business cases, and really kind of fit into that payment toolkit where checks used to be, where agencies would fall back on the check process. If there was something difficult, we see them now falling back on the digital pay tool.
Okay, so what makes the digital pay program so well suited to serve as an alternative to check disbursements?
Yeah, we really do think it is a well-suited alternative to the check process, because we've tailored this program to meet some specific use cases and business needs that we have seen across the government that agencies usually use checks for. Now, federal agencies and Treasury were a huge consumer of direct deposit, and we want to continue to do that. But we have seen a number of business drivers and use cases come up over the years that really did call for another tool. Right now, through digital pay, we offer a portfolio of solutions, ACH, FedNow, payments to debit cards, existing debit cards, can issue new debit cards, virtual or physical, payments to PayPal accounts, a wide variety of solutions. And we did this to help meet a lot of those needs. Historically, one of the first needs that we saw was the need of the unbanked community. At Treasury, we spent a lot of time developing our debit card portfolio to help meet some of this demand. We've seen a lot of success, but including a solution like that in the digital pay product was one of our first requirements. Another business driver that we've had was what I mentioned earlier with the concept of payment choice, giving citizens more options on how to receive their money. That was another good inclusion in the tool. A third driver that we see is speed of payment. I'll probably touch on here in a little bit, and FedNow has been a tremendous partner for and helping meet that need. And then last but not least, we saw a lot of business drivers wanting to ease the burden on agencies wanting to try new solutions, try new tools, but not really having the resources or the capacity to change their own internal processes. So we came up with this digital pay tool to help ease some of the agency burden on implementing new. So we think it's really well suited as an alternative to check disbursements because it specifically meets a lot of these needs that agencies were still using checks for.
That's great insight. So you mentioned FedNow. Last year, you enabled FedNow as a payment rail option in this digital pay platform. How does that system work exactly? Do recipients need to actively choose FedNow or understand the difference between instant payments and ACH?
We try to make the solution very easy for citizens to use so they don't have to know the difference and they don't have to know terminology like FedNow and ACH. We had a lot of discussion on how to best integrate FedNow into the interface. Some background on how the system works. When an agency wants to use the digital pay tool, they simply provide a funding transaction and the digital pay tool takes it from there. The tool will provide an email to the recipient, letting them know that they have received a federal disbursement. That recipient can follow a link, a branded link, to make sure that they have reassurance that it is a legitimate email. But we will perform multi-factor authentication on them, have them agree to receive their payment electronically, and then give them a menu of payment options on how they wish to receive that money. Now, I just briefly touched on what some of those options are: payment to a bank account, to a debit card, issuing a new debit card, or PayPal. We already had an option to make a payment to a bank account. So we had to think about how to best present the option of FedNow to this customer base. Ultimately, what we decided was, that the person receiving the money just knows that they have a bank account and they want the money in the bank account. What we're doing with this tool is, if the bank is participating in FedNow, we're routing the money through FedNow and the citizen's going to get that money almost instantaneously. If their institution does not participate in FedNow, we'll leverage traditional ACH to deliver that money to their bank account. We did not want to confuse the citizen. We did not want to provide them options that might push them to other rails also.
That's very interesting. Seems like an elegant design choice. It's seamless, it's smooth for the payment recipient. And so it sounds like for a recipient whose bank or credit union is on the FedNow network, they'll receive those disbursements immediately over FedNow without having to select FedNow. And those who aren't on the FedNow network yet will just receive them later over ACH.
Exactly.
So do you have any early success stories about the digital payout program that you can share with us?
Yeah, we've had quite a few success stories. One of the most interesting things about working in the government space is learning about all the unique and nuanced business lines we have across the government. No two federal programs are the same, and we have a lot of early adopters showing interest and leveraging the service. The use case that probably has gotten the most attention is FEMA's use of the service. Now, FEMA was one of our initial pilots. And FEMA, of course, disperses federal disaster aid. They began using digital pay from the onset because they offered a unique business case where they needed to get money out. The speed of delivery was incredibly important, responding to disasters. But a lot of the traditional methods to get that money out simply might not apply. Putting a check in the mail, it unfortunately would not get to some of these recipients for many weeks in some cases. So they needed a way to get this money out the door to the recipient in a secure but very urgent manner. And digital pay was a tool that they began to use to complement their ACH processes. Now, we ran the pilot with FEMA on a few small disasters and immediately saw an uptick in adoption. Curiously, we saw citizens actually choosing that bank method and being more comfortable using this digital pay tool to receive payments to their bank account than they may have through the federal system. Today, FEMA is widely using the digital pay tool as disasters hit, as a complement to ACH, and to get that money out the door. They began using FedNow as well earlier last fall. Yeah, and in some cases, we'll see as much as 30 to 40% of our bank disbursements now flowing through the FedNow route on some months. This is really a great example of a unique business case where We were able to use this tool to meet a need that traditional checks may have been issued for, even though it's not in the recipient's best interest to receive a check.
That's great. That's such a compelling story and an important one that I think really resonates. What do you think financial institutions should know about this digital payout program? Is there anything that they need to do to opt in to the Treasury program? Are all Treasury payments going to be sent this way, or is there any kind of special handling that they need to be prepared for with these payments?
What do they need to know? Well, hopefully, our goal is that they do not need to take any special steps, have any special awareness, or be prepared for any special handling. The concept that we're trying to bring to the federal space here is let's use some practices that we see going on in the private sector. The digital pay tool is in use in industries across the country, similar tools to digital pay, not the exact one. And we want to mimic that. We want to have these transactions flow just like they would in a normal business. So I would want our partners to first of all, don't panic. We're not changing too much. What we're trying to do is actually just keep up with the private sector. Now, we are huge consumers of direct deposit. We're huge consumers of making our benefit payments to our Direct Express program. We're not changing that. We don't want our financial institutions to jump to conclusions that everything's changing. We're keeping the majority of our payment operations the same, but we are trying to replace the remaining checks with its new tool. As agencies opt into using the service, we'll slowly start to see transactions ramp up, but you should see these transactions flowing through your normal rails without special handling requirements.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you. So is there anything you can share about what's next on the roadmap for the digital pay program?
Certainly, the idea of having a digital pay tool that integrates many options gives us the flexibility to then also pick and choose where we see the private sector going and adding new capabilities to the federal space. That's a really important and really a kind of exciting part of the tool. We're probably every year going to be evaluating a couple of solutions. I don't have any announcements to make about this new payment option or payment type is going to be added next year, but we are closely looking at, okay, well, what do banking customers receive? But at this point in time, we don't have anything affirmed to announce about what might be added next year.
Okay, well, great. That's good insight. So I think there are a lot of financial institutions on the call today, and they know that if they have questions about FedNow, that they can reach out to their FRFS relationship managers. If they would like to learn anything more about the digital pay program or Treasury's other payment programs, where would you direct them to?
We would love for them to visit our fiscal service website, fiscal.treasury.gov, and just do a quick search for digital pay. You'll get a website that has contact information, email address. That would be a great way to keep in contact. Me or one of my team will probably respond to you. You're also, if you have legacy previous contacts with Treasury, we are one big team here. We can get you connected with the right people.
Well, wonderful. Marshall, thank you again for taking time to share these insights with us about the digital pay program and the value of instant payments. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Oh, two great conversations today about how the U.S. Treasury and Dwolla have embraced instant payments and are doing innovative activities on the network. So if you're interested in hearing more from Dwolla, keep your eyes on our frbservices.org site, and we'll put some more details out there shortly. And to learn more about the digital pay program, check out our latest innovation spotlight to hear directly from financial institutions on how instant payments are speeding up disaster relief disbursements. Earlier this month, Bernadette Sepka, Senior Vice President and FedNow Deputy Head of Product Management, was recently featured on the Bank Nerd Corner podcast. You can listen in to learn how instant payments are solving everyday pain points for consumers and businesses, whether that's payroll to disaster relief payments, and how speed, finality, and data-rich messaging are reshaping expectations across the industry. Anytime I have a chance to listen to Bernadette, I always tune in. So highly recommend taking those few minutes to listen to her. And finally, you can check out highlights from our research that we talked about earlier that talks about US businesses and how they are using instant payments to solve common pain points and improve customer and employees experiences. But we also have some new research coming soon. So all of this will be available at frbservices.org. All right. So if you are not yet live on the network, and I noticed that about pretty good portion of you are interested in coming into the network in the coming months. So this is a great opportunity for you to attend a virtual strategic roundtable. What we cover here are lessons learned, opportunities to create value for your financial institution, and how you might think about putting together your various teams to set yourself up for success. And this one is on Tuesday, April 7th. Participants from prior sessions have shared that they love hearing from peers, as well as sparking their imagination about how they might utilize FedNow within their organization. Now, for those of you, and there are many of you on this call who are already live, and you're looking to support send capabilities or even send more, then please join us on April 9th to learn more about the benefits of sending instant payments and how you can put together a roadmap that makes sense for your organization. We'll share lessons learned, maybe some leadership, and circling back to Skyler's thought exercise. We'll also talk to you about data that you might use in order to think through the possibilities for instant payments. You can feel free to register via the QR codes displayed on your screen now. All right, and it's spring conference season, so we are out on the road. We always look forward to engaging with you in person. In April, we will be at CSICX CX26 in Denver, and then NACHA. I'll be at NACHA, so I hope to see you there in San Diego. If you plan to attend, please stop by our booth or request a one-on-one meeting to discuss FedNow. We're happy to do so. And you'll be able to find where else we'll be later this year by scanning the QR code at the top of your screen. We're committed to providing with the support you need when using our services, and your relationship manager will be able to discuss with you your organization's business needs and use cases for instant payments and help you explore possibilities within your organizations, lessons learned, and other valuable insights. So if you already are in contact with your relationship manager, excellent. But if you are curious who your relationship manager is, then you can go to frbservices.org, or you can scan the QR code in the middle of your screen. And as always, you can reach out to us directly at SYS FedNow Community at chi.frb.org. And following today's session, we'll be sending out a short survey that we hope that you will complete and let us know your thoughts on how it's going. So be on the lookout for that email. And finally, the session today was recorded, so we will post that out on frbservices.org within the next few weeks, so stay tuned there. Thank you again for joining today, and we look forward to talking with you soon.